what I wanted to talk about today was this whole need to know. The reason for the video is I recall a conversation I had got about a year and a bit ago with a friend of mine, in which I was talking about the fact that I wasn't going to be doing any talks in the UK in 2020, and that I felt that most of the year was going to be spent in Europe and moving across Europe and doing talks. I was pretty adamant that that was what's going to happen, and I obviously listed a load of reasons as well as to why that was going to happen. What was really interesting was then obviously the pandemic happened and we were all locked down, and I found myself unable to travel into Europe, but consequently then found myself getting quite busy in the UK doing online meetings, videos, even a few smaller gatherings, which were obviously longer in length. And what I found is over the course of the year, I found myself quite busy in the UK. And I had to have a bit of a laugh to myself, because I was like, God, I so got this wrong. I had this whole idea, and in my head I'd got this like scenario where this was going to happen. And it kind of really made me think about the whole idea of seeking, and the fact that most seekers need to know what this thing is. And you'll kind of hear things like, what is it? How do I speed up the process to this? How do I get it? And recently I've been speaking more and more about not knowing, and this whole idea of like doership as well has become pretty redundant, and I'm speaking more and more about non-doership. So what I wanted to do in this video was kind of really expand this whole idea of this need to know, and whether we do need to know, and whether we can eradicate this need to know by simply trusting, and simply trusting in this whole idea of there is really no one doing this whole idea of non-doership. Because what you find is there's a real great expanse when we let go of the idea of the individual trying to do something and trying to figure something out. And we're more likely then to get our answers when we let go of the individual self, the personalized self that is trying to control or grasp or get some sort of answer here. And as we let go of that need to know, what's really interesting is the way that it just all opens up, and there's just a trusting. So I had the idea for this video this morning, and I was going to record this video, and for some strange reason there's a few bullet points on my head as well. And now as I'm recording, I'm thinking I've lost this train of thought that this was the way the video was going to happen, and being okay with that, not really knowing where this is going to go next or what's going to be talked about, and simply trusting the ebb and flow of life. What we find is that there is a real sense of answer here when we let go of this idea of wanting to know it, the desire to know it, the desire to control and understand. And life becomes kind of, in a sense, easier, and there's less pressure then, because there isn't this whole idea of something has to be said, or something has to be heard, or something needs to be done, or I have to become, or I have to answer a question. It's a simple acceptance of this moment, and whatever this moment brings up. And what we find is when we start observing this moment initially, we start realizing that there is very little that we do actually know, and there's very little that we're actually doing. There seems to be this whole emphasis in the West on doing and being and trying, and we've got to get our answers, and everything has to be in a beautiful, perfectly packaged little box. And only then can we, get some sort of peace of mind or clarity. Could we take this need for clarity or understanding and literally throw it out the window, and allow ourselves to literally just swim in this nothingness and be okay with not knowing? And if we can accept that not knowing, and we can accept the fact that there really isn't a need to be or do or try or really go anywhere or attain anything, then we find there's this real freedom in this expanse, because we recognize this expanse as ourselves without a need to hold it, to claim it, to lay any sort of claim to it at all, really, and just allow ourselves to be. And it is a beautiful playful place, because all manner of answers then appear, but with them not appearing for any particular person or a particular person trying to understand, or trying to claim these answers, or trying to say that these answers are emanating from them. And life becomes joyful and it becomes easy, and it's something I've noticed has been happening more and more recently, and I'm just really enjoying that sense of, as a matter of fact, I'm enjoying that whole loss of control of trying, of doing or being, and putting myself under some sort of pressure that I've got to provide answers, or I've got to do anything. And in that not knowing and in that not doing, there's just an opening, and everything is seen to be, right here and right now, without any need to claim it or grasp it or to hold it or to say I've done this or I've achieved this. This whole idea of achievement is completely redundant in this place. And what we find is, in that expanse, there is this real dynamic sense of being alive and really living, because we're not seeing the world through this conditioned, this conditioned, idea of an individual that's trying to do something, or we're not seeing the world through these ideas and these thoughts that we've given so much value to. It's like, I had a thought, I don't see myself doing anything in the UK, I'm going to be going to Europe. And then obviously another thought joined that, and then after a while you're defending an idea, that, oh, this is going to happen, I'm convinced it's going to happen. And this is how seeking, comes into play, because we have this initial idea, and instead of just allowing it to pass, another idea is joined with it, and it gathers momentum. And then sooner or later what happens is we've constructed this beautiful, castle, or we've constructed this beautiful, as a matter of fact, wrong choice of words completely. We've constructed this beautiful idea, this concept, this philosophy, and we realize that because we've put so much time and effort into it, which are again constructed beliefs, we then, rather than lose faith, have to defend that idea that something is missing in this case, or something needs to be sought, or something will be at peace when something is achieved. And it's whether we can it's whether we can rest as what we actually really are, and in that resting as what we actually are, these ideas, instead of being dismantled or something needing to be done, can just collapse, because there isn't that emotional weight behind them. We're not vested in them as we usually are, and in that, in letting go of wanting to know, and being in that place, where there really is no subject or object, there really isn't anybody doing anything. We find that all of these ideas are just exposed. It's a bit like the Emperor's New Clothes. It's just, these are literally just ideas which have really no weight, and they're just naked, but they are masquerading as something so real. So sometimes our story and everything that we've added to that story, imbued that story with, with the vested interest that we've got in that story, leads us into a place where we do need to know, because we need some sort of satisfaction. We need some conclusion to this journey that we're on. And this journey has started with the thought that something's, not right, something's missing. And if we look at that thought and examine that, we may find that there isn't really anything behind it. There isn't anything concrete and real behind it. And we can then, look at that which is prior to all of this, and see that this expanse, this background is actually the foreground, and that it is what's real. And this story that we've constructed, these ideas that we've constructed, and that we've given an emotional charge to by believing them to be real is actually false. And we can then recognizing ourselves as who we actually are, see the very illusory nature of this play that's playing itself out. And by resting as what we actually are, we can see the real playfulness of existence, and we can live in the truest sense of the word, without veils, without filters, without a need to know. And life just becomes easy because there's no one really there. There's not all of this baggage associated with personality, name and idea and form and understanding there. And we travel very, very lightly because we're literally traveling with nothing, because there isn't anything. There isn't really, an apparent other. There isn't even an apparent us here. And there's just this expanse that is being and doing whatever it needs to do in the moment, and manifesting itself as and how it wishes to manifest itself. And this need to know can be seen as so redundant, because there really isn't anybody who needs to know. There really isn't any knowing in that place that's constructed on fabrication. And yet knowing exists when we rest as what we truly are.